control, while it is a factor, it is definitely not the majority of the reason you're stuck in your cycle. You're receiving a big hit of dopamine. And over time, as you continue to watch pornography, you need more and more extreme content to get the same level of high from the dopamine, because you're becoming desensitized to it. Good morning, friends. What is my intro? My name is Jera. If you've never been here before, happy to have you. I make content surrounding faith, recovery from sexual brokenness and just pornography addiction, and also leading women through shame. So happy to have you here. Today I'm taking a quick drive, so I was like, might as well pop the camera up and chat with you guys just a little bit. I wanted to talk to you about things that I wish someone would have told me when I was struggling through my pornography addiction. So I hope that these things could be insightful for you if that's currently where you are, or if you're just starting a recovery journey, or maybe you've been approaching that recovery journey for a while. Especially now in my ministry, working with women specifically in this area, I feel like there's been a lot of things that have been revealed to me, and that God's been speaking to me also through my training and talking to other leaders in this area. So yeah, that's what I wanted to chat with you guys about today. So let's get into it. I don't know why I did the hand like that. Let's get into it. First, I have to stop for gas. So, side note, real quick, I just want to give you guys a little bit of a life update, I guess, because I feel like lately a lot of my content has been surrounding like ministry things. Obviously, I love that, and that's what I feel called to, but I also would love to still have that personal level to chat with you guys sometimes. So, right now, I'm actually headed to our storage unit to drop off some things from our garage. So I've been doing some spring cleaning, I guess you would say. Since we first moved in the fall, so now it's been probably about 6-7 months, everything was pretty much in our storage unit at first, and so I've been slowly moving things over still, and since then our garage has kind of accumulated some stuff, so I was cleaning it out this week, and so I pretty much have some things to drop off there, including, sadly, our son who just turned 5. A lot of his stuff he's outgrowing, and I have to box it up and save it for our next kiddo, which just makes me a little bit sad. But yeah, that's where I'm headed to today. Generally, I am doing pretty well in a season of life where I'm just trusting the Lord, and when he called me into this ministry, I didn't really know what that would fully look like, and I'm actively fundraising for my role. So we're a smaller nonprofit, and so all of my salary is supported by individual donors, and so that part has been a bit of a journey because that's all new to me. I've never really fundraised much before. And so trying to actively raise support and getting the message across of what I'm doing and why we need these spaces is a big part of my focus right now. So if you could pray for that, that would be wonderful. I definitely need prayers of, the Lord really supplying that need. And also, if you want to learn more about it, I just created a new ministry support page where you can always just check it, and it has current updates about what I'm doing in ministry, what's the current fundraising needs, and ways you can be a part of that. So I'll have that linked below and you can check it out, and it's just a quick look. I would really appreciate that. I'm gonna get gas real quick and then we can continue our chat. So let's have a talk about recovery. So my recovery journey from pornography addiction and other unhealthy sexual behaviors started 5 years ago. So I was in that addiction cycle for 7 years. I was exposed for the first time when I was 12 years old from a friend from school. And during all of that time of struggles, I didn't really have any type of knowledge about addiction recovery or resources or any type of guidance at all about the subject. The only time I heard people talk about pornography was, I probably heard like 2 sermons my whole life at church where they like briefly mentioned pornography, but it was only targeted towards the boys. And with pornography addiction, there's already so many layers of shame for men or women, but for it to be painted as a men's issue just brings on even additional layers of heavy shame for women. And so that's what I really experienced growing up. I thought, okay, I don't really know anything about sex. Whenever I was first exposed to pornography, I watched it out of curiosity in the beginning because I didn't know anything about sex. But then over time, it became an addiction for me. That's kind of all I knew. I didn't have a good idea of what biblical healthy sexuality looked like. I didn't know about boundaries. I didn't know about healthy relationships. I was really just kind of left in the dark to figure it out by myself as a child. And so these are some major things that I wish I would have known about. I think one of the biggest things is when it comes to compulsion addiction, and for a lot of us, when it comes to pornography addiction, that's what it becomes, where you kind of feel like you have no choice and it's become that compulsion. It is not about having a lack of self-control. I hear so many women in recovery talk about, why can't I just control myself? What's the matter with me? I just lack self-control. And when it comes to recovering from an addiction cycle like this, self-control, while it is a factor, it is definitely not the majority of the reason you're stuck in your cycle. So a little bit of the neurological side of addiction is whenever you watch pornography, you're getting a big dose of dopamine. Dopamine is that like feel-good chemical in our brains. And so watch pornography and masturbate, you're receiving a big hit of dopamine. And over time, as you continue to watch pornography, you need more and more extreme content to get the same level of high from the dopamine because you're becoming desensitized to it. So over time, as you continue to watch pornography, you're becoming dependent on dopamine. And in life, whenever stresses come, whether that is you're stressed out at school, you had an argument with your friend or your spouse, or work is becoming overwhelming for you, your brain's pathway, the neurological pathway it has formed, is to go to whatever can get you the highest form of dopamine to soothe yourself and cope. And if you are in that addiction cycle, it is always going to want to point you towards watching pornography. And that obviously ties to the other type of unwanted sexual behaviors like masturbation or having sex in unhealthy situations. And so that is why you can start to feel like you have no self-control, because it's becoming a compulsion where you feel like you have no choice. Your brain is automatically going to keep pushing you down this pathway that has been formed most of the time for years, depending on your specific story. So it's not just about a lack of self-control, it's about understanding what's going on in my brain and how can I go from there. Something else I wish I would have understood was that I'm not the only girl in the world who struggles with this. Latest statistics are very alarming for how high our percentages are when it comes to consumption of pornography. So for women, it's showing up to 60% of women are watching pornography, and then up to 80% of men. Some statistics obviously show higher or lower than that, depending on what it is. But those are very high numbers. So that means that you are not alone in this. This is becoming an issue that is affecting majority of people, whether you are a man or a woman. And if I would have known that, and I think if I would have heard women speaking out about this as a teenage girl growing up struggling, I think that would have been a huge validating moment for me. And that's why I'm so passionate about speaking about this and sharing my testimony, is because I want to be that voice for women who've never got to hear a woman share her experiences and struggles, and for it to be validating to have groups of women who can come together and share our experiences and our struggles, and knowing that this is not just a men's issue. I've had women come to me, whether locally from my church where I shared my story, or even virtually where I hold my groups through 423 communities, and they tell me that before watching my testimony video or before hearing my story, they had never seen a woman publicly speak about pornography addiction. That needs to change. We need to have a culture where the church is inviting women openly to speak about this and to share testimonies of how God was able to transform their lives fully. Well, I'm pulling into the storage unit, so I need to unload this stuff, and then I will continue chatting with you guys. Whew. It is a warm day today. Okay. Another thing I wish that someone would have told me was that God was not angry at me or disappointed in me. I was a child who was exposed to something very traumatic that I had no way to cope with. I wasn't given any tools to succeed. I felt as a child as if like I was just like this villain who was running from God, and I honestly really villainized myself and made myself to feel like I was the bad guy, and that I was just so messed up that I just couldn't help myself. And when you are exposed to sex at a young age, so immaturely, and especially in very unhealthy, traumatic ways, that's going to have very lasting effects on you that you don't even realize, obviously, in the moments. And so I wish someone would have told me, God loves you. He's here for you. He's not this angry man in the sky that you're imagining him to be. He's there with open arms waiting for you to come to him and let him take away these heavy layers of shame and the burdens that you've been carrying for years. And I didn't have a healthy view of God or who he was or how he viewed me at all. Honestly, up until 5 years ago when I fully started my recovery journey. Something else that I wish I would have known was the importance of community and bringing my sin out of the darkness into the light. So sin thrives in the darkness. The Bible clearly tells us this. Like, living in darkness is where sin continues to thrive, because when you are alone in your struggles, you are just going to be relying on your own self-narrative, right? And during these types of struggles, the narratives that we tend to say to ourselves are things like, what's the matter with you? Why can't you control yourself? Stop doing bad things. Why can't you just get over this? Why am I so sexual? Why do I have no self-control? I'm disgusting. I'm unworthy. I'm never going to get free from this. If you've went through addiction, that's probably the types of narratives you've heard in your mind. When that is the only words you are hearing about your struggles, that's going to affect you mentally. That's going to keep you stuck in that shame, guilt, addiction cycle. And so whenever, for the first time, I openly told somebody about my struggles, I felt already the weight of shame lifting off of my life. And during that first year of recovery for me, as many of you know, the Lord spoke to me and told me to post my testimony video. And that was literally my worst nightmare. Growing up, my biggest fear was people finding out who I was and finding out my secrets and finding out about my struggles, because that was going to affect how people viewed me. And I thought I was going to lose all of my friends. And so when the Lord told me to do that, I was like, I'm not doing that. I literally struggled with him. I wrestled with him back and forth for a couple of months there, where when I thought about people finding out about my story, I had so much anxiety and fear around that. Now, not everybody's story includes them publicly sharing to the world what they've been through or their whole testimony. But this can obviously be different for everyone's story. I think community and telling people around you, trusted, safe people, not just anybody who you know is going to react badly, but people who are safe, who love you, who have biblical wisdom, is vital to everyone's recovery journey. We were not meant to run this race alone. That's why in my ministry at 423 Communities, it's in the title, we emphasize community so much. That's why we have groups where we have confessional time to share openly with each other. And there's a whole other side of that neurologically that I won't get into a whole spiel about, but there is studies that show in our brains, whenever we share areas where we've had shame living to safe people in safe places, it starts to rewire our brains in healthy ways. And so God literally created us to be able to share in a cloud of witnesses about our struggles and to be very open about that. And so while that might feel like the most daunting thing ever, and trust me, I get that, I would just encourage you to start praying for the strength and the courage to find one person in your life who is a safe person. That can look different for everybody. It could be a friend, it could be a family member, it could be a pastor, it could be different for anybody. But really start to pray about that. You cannot be fully loved unless you are fully known. And if you continue to keep that sin and struggle in the darkness, it will thrive. It loves the darkness. Like we talked about, it loves that self-narrative. So bring it into the light. I also want to encourage all of you that whether you are a man, a woman, a youth, or a wife who's going through the betrayal trauma of her husband struggling, at 423 Communities, we have groups for you. I always link our website below, and I'm currently walking with about 12 women in 2 different groups where we come together to have that confessional time together, and then we also have lessons and resources and workbooks that we go through. We meet every single week virtually. We have the resources for you. You do not have to do this alone. You fill out an application on our website, and depending on which group you're in, you'll be connected to either myself, our executive director Joel, who leads the men's, Ben, who leads the youth program, or Rachel, who leads the wives support group. And so you are directly connected to us. We set up a call with you to talk to you about your recovery. We get you all of the forms signed up for group, and that's what that process looks like. And so I would love to welcome you into group if you feel like the Lord is calling you in that direction. So if you take a couple minutes to look over our website, kind of see what we're about, I want to have that resource available for you guys, because I know in my recovery journey, if I would have had this resource, it would have been so life-changing for me, and I think I would have been brought out of my addiction a lot sooner and not have struggled in isolation for years in the way that I was. I hope that from this video you feel encouraged. I hope that there was something that spoke to you. If you have any specific questions about recovery or pornography addiction cycles or any of that, please drop it below. I'd love to respond to you guys' questions and comments. And I also want to say that we can stay connected through other social media as well. I have my Instagram account where I post all things recovery. And again, don't forget to check out my ministry support page below as well. But thank you for chatting with me today. I do appreciate you guys so much, and if it wasn't for this platform, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be in ministry at all, and so I just send you guys all the love. I'm so thankful that God has given me this community specifically. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. I look forward to chatting with you guys again soon.